While others were allowed to linger, they were already adjusting. They learned how to read the room before they learned how to play in it. They noticed changes in tone before they understood language fully. They sensed responsibility before anyone explained it. They didn't need to be told when something was wrong. They could feel it. They noticed when adults were tired, when voices sharpened, when silence lasted longer than it should. They adapted without instruction. They learned when to stay out of the way, when to help, when to stay quiet. They didn't ask why. They learned that asking added weight. So they became light. They didn't cause problems. They didn't need much. They learned to solve things on their own. They often remember childhood not as a series of events, but as a state of readiness. Always listening, always aware, always slightly ahead of what was coming next. They may not remember being carefree. They remember being useful. They remember being trusted with things early. Information, tasks, emotional responsibility that didn't belong to them. They were told they were so mature, that they were strong, that they were easy. They internalized this. They learned that being capable was valued, that being calm kept things stable, that being self-sufficient reduced tension. As they grew older, this became automatic. They didn't wait to be asked. They noticed what needed to be done and did it. They anticipated needs before anyone expressed them. They didn't expect help. They expected themselves. As adults, this still shows. They plan ahead instinctively. They manage details others overlook. They rarely feel unprepared. They often feel uncomfortable being idle. Rest doesn't feel neutral. It feels like something that must be justified. They may struggle to relax even in safe environments. Their body stays slightly alert, not anxious, prepared. They don't like surprises, they don't like unpredictability. They prefer knowing what's coming. Not because they lack spontaneity, but because unpredictability once carried consequences. They are often described as grounded, level-headed, reliable. They don't crumble under pressure, but pressure is familiar. They grew up with it. They're often the one others lean on, the one who keeps perspective, the one who handles crises calmly, the one who doesn't panic. Inside, they may feel tired in a way they can't name. Not burnout, accumulation. They learned early that being okay was part of their role, so they rarely let themselves fall apart, even when they want to. They may feel disconnected from younger parts of themselves. Playfulness feels distant, rest feels conditional, joy sometimes feels irresponsible. They don't say this out loud, they assume this is just who they are, but their nervous system remembers a time when growing up was not gradual, it was required, and that requirement still shapes how they move through the world now. From the outside, growing up fast is often interpreted as advantage. People assume it gave them a head start, that it made them stronger, that it prepared them for life better than others. They are praised for being composed, admired for their discipline, trusted because they seem unshakable. Their seriousness is read as wisdom. Their caution is read as intelligence. Their independence is read as confidence. Because these traits are rewarded, the cost of developing them early is rarely examined. Others assume they chose maturity, that they preferred responsibility, that they were naturally inclined to be dependable, that they simply skipped stages that others needed. There is little curiosity about what made that skipping necessary. When they don't act playful, it's seen as personality. When they struggle to rest, it's seen as work ethic. When they avoid relying on others, it's seen as pride. Their restraint is normalized, even idealized. People say things like, "You've always had it together. You're so strong. You don't really need help." These statements are meant as compliments, but they quietly reinforce an expectation that they will continue to manage, that they will continue to cope, that they will continue to be the steady one. When they show signs of strain, it surprises people, because strain contradicts the image. How can you be overwhelmed? You're the responsible one. You've handled worse. Their difficulty is often minimized, because it doesn't fit the story others have learned to tell about them. They don't fall apart publicly. They don't demand support loudly. They don't externalize distress, so it's assumed distress isn't there. Their inner fatigue goes unnoticed. People rarely ask what they missed. the freedom to be careless, the space to depend, the experience of being held without also holding something else together. Instead, the narrative stays simple. They were just mature, they were just capable, they were just different. This interpretation leaves no room for the possibility that maturity was not a preference, but a response. It also creates pressure as they age. They are expected to remain stable, to continue carrying responsibility, to be the one others lean on. Letting go of that role feels risky, because if their strength was what made them valued, what happens when they stop being strong? This social misunderstanding makes it difficult for them to name their own experience, because how do you talk about loss when everyone thinks you gained something? How do you grieve a childhood that others believe made you better? So they often stay quiet, they accept the compliments, they live up to expectations, they keep performing competence, and in doing so, the reality of growing up too fast. The vigilance, the early responsibility, the delayed softness remains unseen, not denied maliciously, just overlooked, in a world that praises outcomes without asking what it took to produce them. Growing up fast is not a personality trait. It is a nervous system response to an environment that required readiness before safety. When a child senses that stability is inconsistent, they do not wait for reassurance. They become it. They learn to scan before relaxing, to prepare before being asked, to stay slightly ahead of what might go wrong. This is not conscious, it is instinctive. The nervous system prioritizes survival over development, connection over expression, predictability over play, so the child organizes themselves around what keeps things steady. They notice patterns quickly. Which moods mean silence is safer? Which questions cause tension? Which needs create burden? They learn what not to need. Over time, this becomes internal law. Don't ask, don't add weight, don't fall apart, instead manage. They become highly attuned to responsibility, not because they enjoy it, but because responsibility creates order. Order reduces uncertainty. Uncertainty once carried consequences, so their system associates control with safety. This is why they often appear calm under pressure. Pressure feels familiar. Their nervous system learned early how to stay online in it. What looks like composure is actually sustained activation. That has become normalized. They don't experience stress as an emergency. They experience it as baseline. This is why rest feels strange. Rest requires trust. Trust that nothing will fall apart if they stop monitoring. Trust that someone else will notice what needs attention. Trust that their absence will not create problems. For someone who grew up fast, that trust was not reliably taught. So even in calm environments, the system stays alert, not anxious, prepared to step in, prepared to adjust, prepared to stabilize. This preparedness once protected them. It allowed them to feel useful rather than helpless, capable rather than overwhelmed, needed rather than invisible. It gave them a sense of agency in situations where choice was limited. But agency achieved through vigilance has a cost. It delays rest, it restricts softness, it makes receiving feel unfamiliar. As adults, they may struggle with moments that require surrender, being taken care of, letting others lead, not knowing what comes next. These moments don't feel dangerous logically, but the body reacts anyway, because the body remembers when not knowing mattered. Growing up fast also shapes emotional processing. They often learn to delay feelings, not suppress them completely, but postpone them until things felt stable. Sadness could wait, fear could wait, anger could wait. There were things to handle first. Over time, this postponement becomes habitual. They are excellent at functioning through emotion, less practiced at resting inside it. They may struggle to identify what they feel in real time. They may need quiet and distance to access it later. They may feel disconnected from their own needs, not because the needs are absent, but because they were deprioritized for a long time. This creates a particular kind of adulthood, one marked by competence, reliability, internal pressure. They often carry an invisible clock, a sense that things must be handled promptly, that delays are risky, that letting things slide is irresponsible, even when no one is watching, even when nothing is wrong. This is why they often feel older internally, not because they lack youth, but because their system has been active for so long. It has been working since early years, without the pauses that allow ease to develop naturally. Psychologically, this is coherent. Children adapt to what keeps connection intact. If growing up quickly preserved stability, then growing up quickly made sense. It was not a mistake, it was an intelligent solution to an environment that asked too much, too soon, and like all early solutions, it stays in place long after the environment changes. Not because the person doesn't want relief, but because the nervous system learned. That vigilance worked, so it keeps doing it, until safety is experienced long enough that the system can slowly, very slowly, consider another way of being. But that consideration does not come through force, it comes through permission. Permission to rest without earning it. Permission to be held without managing. Permission to exist without scanning. And understanding this reframes the behaviour entirely. What looks like seriousness is adaptation. What looks like independence is early self-reliance. What looks like emotional restraint is a system that learned to wait. Growing up fast was not about skipping childhood, it was about surviving it, by becoming what the environment needed, and that strategy, effective, costly, enduring, is still present now. Not as a flaw, as history that's still carried quietly. In the body, you don't need to justify why softness feels unfamiliar. You don't need to explain why responsibility still finds you first. You don't need to defend why rest feels uneasy instead of natural. You don't need to prove that you're allowed to slow down. Nothing is wrong because you learned early. Nothing is missing because you adapted instead of playing. Nothing is broken because your nervous system stayed alert when others were protected. Your maturity was not a choice you made lightly. It was a response to what the environment required. It is allowed that you still feel older inside. It is allowed that ease does not arrive automatically. It is allowed that being taken care of feels foreign. You are not cold because you stay composed. You are not distant because you handle things alone. You are not difficult because vulnerability takes time. You don't owe the world your vigilance anymore. You don't owe others constant competence. You don't owe explanations for why slowing down feels like learning a new language. You are allowed to rest without earning it. You are allowed to let someone else carry weight sometimes. You are allowed to move at a pace that no longer matches urgency, quietly, without announcement, without permission, and nothing about who you became, because you had to grow up early, needs to be undone, in order for you to be worthy of ease.